Hi guys, and welcome back to Movies That Matter with the Viking. And today is the 7th anniversary of the masterpiece Man of Steel. 7 years it's been since the film came out, and I don't know about you, but I didn't see Man of Steel in theaters. Unfortunately, at the time I wasn't a big I was a movie fan, but I wasn't big like I am now in terms of going into depth of looking at films and knowing everything that goes on about them. So I came to Man of Steel a little bit later in life. I'd say it was about 2 or 3 years after it came out in theaters. I remember going to local video store and buying X-Men Days of Future. No, it was X-Men First Class and Man of Steel. So I bought those two films, and I remember my folks were away. They went on a holiday, and I was home alone. And no, don't worry, they're good parents. But I was home alone, and I watched X-Men First Class, and then I put on Man of Steel. And this was a time when I had caught Man of Steel on TV a few times, but never really watched it from start to finish, catching little bits of the scenes and stuff like that. Like when I'd seen it on TV, I wasn't a big fan because for me, I was never a big Superman fan, never into Superman whatsoever. The character never appealed to me. I always thought the character was too perfect. I could never see anything bad happening with the character in terms of going through any struggles or any cool fight scenes because it was Superman. He could do absolutely everything. But that was my opinion before I got big into films. So I sat down that day and I put it in and I watched it and I really, really liked it. But I just liked it. But I came back to the film again over time. And I've watched the film countless times now. And every single time I watch Man of Steel, it gets better. I'm not even joking. It really is a masterpiece. It's absolutely brilliant. It's emotional. It's got some unbelievable action scenes. Like, I don't know, has there ever been a film pre-Man of Steel that had action scenes that looked like that? Because they look absolutely mind-blowing, absolutely brilliant. And I don't think I've ever seen anything like it before. Those fights with Superman and Fiora, then Superman and General Zod, really was cool. But it's more than just an action fest. It really is an emotional film. And I just watched it recently with Zack Snyder's Watch Along, and it really is still a very emotional film, even after repetitive viewings. And there's so much stuff that you realize and get to see that you didn't see other times, even with Zack Snyder there explaining some scenes and why he did certain things, like with the broken moon, about that was the real Doomsday that did that, about the open pod. There's so many interesting things that you might have not realized in your first time watching it. That's what makes it such an interesting and fascinating watch. I really enjoyed the dynamic and relationship between Clark and Paul Kent. Him saying that you're not my father, and then would you still love me, and like things like that. It's really, really, really kind of tugs at the heartstrings. And then of course with Pat Kent dying, and he wanted to protect his son like any father does. He wanted to protect his son from any hardship, any discrimination, things like that, because that's what would have happened, and that's what we get to see in Batman versus Superman. But he wanted to protect his son, and it took for him to die for that to happen. And that's, people give that scene a lot of criticism and things like that, but you have to realize of a real world scenario. Look what happened in Batman versus Superman. He was looked at as an alien. He was discriminated. He was thrown to the, he wanted to burn him. So Pat Kent was right. He says someday you'll make a decision where you can save this world or do nothing, and that's up to you, son. And it's really, really a well written film by David Goyer. Christopher Nolan was involved as well. Zack Snyder there. It really was well made, well written. The story is brilliant. It's a 2.5 hour film, and it feels like a long film, but you don't get bored. There's so much character development happening. The transition from Clark as a kid, from when he was a teenager, from when he was a young adult to now. I love those little transitions and the little subtle hints of him becoming Superman, getting used to his powers, getting used to who he is. He's even criticized by his father for saving a kid, saving a bus full of kids. But this is all just to protect him. And it really shows that parent-son, parent-child relationship and dynamic. It works so well. Also with Martha Kent, who we get to see in Batman vs Superman, has an even more important role. But to me, General Zod was an absolutely brilliant villain. One of the best comic book villains ever. He's up there with the Joker. He's up there with Thanos in Infinity War. He's up there with Lex Luthor, Jesse Eisenberg. He really is. It was fascinating. I loved his line delivery. Michael Shannon is a great actor. The fight sequences between him and Henry Cavill were great. And let's talk about Henry Cavill as Superman. To me, Henry Cavill is the definition of Superman. He looks it. He talks it. He just is Superman. He, to me, is the best Superman of all time. People like Christopher Reeves, people like Smallville, the TV show, which I just started watching. People like this depiction of the character that's full of hope, that's full of optimism. But I love this Superman because he goes through struggle. He goes through real life struggle. He really does. People are criticized every day. People are looked down upon. People are shamed because they're different, whether that be how they look or what their sexual orientation is or anything. They're looked down. Everyone judges. And I really related with this Superman so much because I always looked at Superman as this perfect, happy-go-lucky character that can do anything. But Man of Steel changed that for me. And I love the character development that we were seeing from Man of Steel to Batman vs Superman to Justice League. It really was. But he isn't just a god that can do anything. He's a god who wants to become a man that can do anything, but he struggles with this. He struggles with being this super being. He struggles with trying to find human qualities, trying to relate to people, trying to find love, trying to use his powers for good. What really is the right decision? Is there such thing as the right decision when you have these powers? If he wanted to, he could team up with General Zod. They could take over the world and that would be the end of the story. But that human quality, that quality of empathy with compassion takes over. And that's what makes him probably the greatest superhero of all time. He has these abilities and he uses them for good because he can relate to humans. He is more human than humans, really. He really is. And we see that in Batman vs Superman with Martha. And Batman realizes that he has a mother and he realizes that he is more human than human. But Man of Steel came out, and of course, when a Zack Snyder film, it gets its critics. The box office did well enough. It's the highest grossing Superman standalone film of all time. And it was definitely an audience for this character. There really was. The people say Zack Snyder films are not hopeful. They're not optimism. Man, this Man of Steel film is so inspiring. It really is. To see somebody that rises up through these struggles, through this hate, and still become a better person. To still do the right thing. And to still stand there on its own. It really is inspiring. Man of Steel for me is a masterpiece of the comic book movie genre. And I look at films like Watchmen, like Man of Steel, like Batman vs Superman. They're so different from the comic book genre films that we usually get that I nearly even have them outside the comic book genre because they're so unique and so interesting. 7 years later, people are still talking about Man of Steel. 4 years later, they're still talking about Batman vs Superman. Watchmen is gaining a more and more audience every year. Man of Steel is a superhero film on its surface, but if you delve deep into what this film really tells, you find so much more. If this film, like me, took you 3 or 4 or 5 watches to really get into the story, get really into the characters, because this is such a really unique depiction of the character, then this will last for the rest of your life. Man of Steel for me is one of my favorite comic book films of all time. And that just didn't happen after watching it after one viewing. It took me 6 or 7 times to actually say this film is a masterpiece. And I would advise you, if you've only seen Man of Steel once or twice and you have mixed opinions on it, I want you to sit down. I want you to put it in or get it and watch it again. Because I guarantee your opinion of this film that you had before will be very different than your opinion you have right now. Because somehow, some way, this film, this story speaks to you as you get older. As you gain more struggle in your life, as you gain more hate, this film will speak to you a lot more. But Man of Steel is a fascinating watch, and Henry Cavill is a fascinating Superman. The cinematography from Larry Fong is breathtaking, it's outstanding. The score from Hans Zimmer is a classic. It will live on for the ages. And the direction from Zack Snyder truly is brilliant. Zack Snyder is one of my favorite directors. People say he's only a visual director. I will disagree. He is a fascinating and brilliant storyteller. He really is. And the character development that we were going to get from Man of Steel to Batman vs. Superman to Justice League was going to be like nothing that we've ever seen before. But next year we'll get to see the conclusion. Well, maybe not the conclusion, but the progression of this character, the progression of this story. And that, for I'm really grateful for and thankful that we will get to see this trilogy. Because the Man of Steel, people look for a Man of Steel 2. We got it. It's Batman vs. Superman. I'd love a Man of Steel sequel, but we got the sequel. Now I want the trilogy. I really do. What are some of my favourite scenes from Man of Steel? Well, first flight where Superman is learning, he just after getting his suit from his father, his real father from Krypton. The first flight is really fascinating. It's kind of Superman's first time learning how to fly, and he's just enjoying himself. You know, before he can take on General Zod and his army, he's just kind of embracing who he is. You can see that there's kind of been a weight lifted off his shoulders, because throughout the film we're kind of he's understanding who is he, why does he have these powers, where does he really come from. And once he discovers this, once he realizes where he comes from, he seems to have a sense of freedom, a sense of this sense of just finding a new persona. And he really does really transition from Clark Kent to Superman very well. And there's other heroes who can't do that. Bruce Wayne and Batman vs. Superman finds that very, very hard. But also another scene I like is when the army arrests him and they put him in handcuffs, and he was like, he could break out of the handcuffs anytime he wants, but he does it just because it makes them feel better if he's in handcuffs. I really love that scene. I thought that was brilliant. And even the Russell Crowe scenes, the very first scene, actually, the opening scene on Krypton, that's unbelievable. That could be a short story, a short film in itself. The effects that they used for that to show Krypton, to show the different kind of creatures on that world, the different landscape that they have, that was absolutely brilliant. Another line I love is I will find him by General Zod. That was brilliant. You could see the anger, the desperation in General Zod's words and on his voice. That was pretty interesting. I love the Easter eggs. You get to see the LexCorp Easter eggs, you get to see the Bruce Wayne Easter eggs. Those are all pretty cool and kind of early hints and elements that we will see something more of this world. The open pod is still a question. Is it Supergirl? Is it something else? And will we get to see Supergirl in the future? I think we will. I actually think she'll be referenced in Zack Snyder's Justice League. But the end fight's actually fascinating, isn't it, with General Zod? That's really cool. I'd love to see more of Fiora as well. So anyway, guys, 7 years since Man of Steel came out in theaters. Hard to believe. So I think that grants a rewatch. I think we should all sit down tonight and rewatch Man of Steel. Get on Twitter and show your love for the film as well. Talk about it, engage with people that you know, and you might make some new friends that love the film also. So anyway, guys, let me know your thoughts on Man of Steel. 7 years since it came out. We got to see Batman vs. Superman. Next year we get to see the continuation of the story in Zack Snyder's Justice League. But let me know how much you love this film, or if you don't love this film, come and engage. Let me know what you thought of the film the first time you watched it compared to the latest time you watched it. So let me know. Anyway, guys, follow all the social media and come and give me a follow, and we'll talk about movies. That's what we love doing. And also, guys, remember, stay positive.